Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to Emmy TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Welcome. Good afternoon. The hand clap sounds like the rain we're looking at this moment. As you can see, well, you can't see what we're looking at. How's everybody doing?
What is wrong with your headphones?
Because I can't stand these. I cannot stand these headphones. You hear me? I cannot stand these headphones. It feels like it cut off you, like you're on a bubble somewhere. Anyway, good afternoon. Welcome to MBTV Put Your Family First podcast. I am your host, Calvin T. Mann, and we have a special guest in the building, and we're going to let Heather do her thing. Good afternoon, everybody, ladies.
Good afternoon.
This is ladies' afternoon, guys. I'm in here surrounded, so I'm not going to start any conversations in regard to male versus female. We're not going to do that today. Today, this is about wellness.
Thank you.
It's about wellness. So the road. I guess my headphones do look funny. Anyway, Monique, how you doing?
I'm great.
Good. So, Sister Het, Taru, Heather, do your thing. How you doing?
I'm tickled right now. Thank you.
That's what you're supposed to be.
Well, again, happy to be here. Happy to come off of this amazing weekend, where we were going through our football camp and engaging with the boys, engaging with their families, and really just, it's so amazing when you see people come together to support one another, parents supporting their kids, parents supporting parents. It was a lot of emotion in the course of our football camp. Not just the energy that was coming from the kids, but, certain things that happen in daily life that where you have, you're faced with obstacles and challenges. And we know one of the parents who we're going to keep lifted in prayer lost a family member over the weekend and still managed to be there for their son, show up, stay all day, come back day 2, stay all day, just enduring in the midst of grief. And so just to keep that particular family lifted in prayer, as well as all of the families that are working so hard to keep our boys connected, to keep our boys involved and engaged, and to encourage them. So it is a feat nonetheless, but it has to be done. And so I applaud and I'm grateful for all the families who are doing it successfully, doing it hanging on by a string, doing it, just getting it done and just pressing through every day, looking for that next exciting moment that brings us back together as a family and a community. So just excited to be here today. Calvin alluded to our special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. I just want to share this quote. Normally I quote a lot of Calvin Mann because he has over, at least 500 quotes that I know of. I'm sure it's much more than that. But this particular quote around family, when I heard it, really moved me. And we were listening to T.D. Jakes' Disruptive Thinking book. And he said a statement in there that just has been sitting with me for a few weeks now. And the statement or the quote was, family is the gym that love works out in. Family is the gym that love works out in. And, when I heard it the first time, it was cute. But as I sat on it these few weeks and really started to look at that is where we learn the very basics of relationships, is within our family unit. And, family, we know it's merely made up of individuals, and we can define and refine families based on, our geography, based on our DNA, based on our parentage or our lineage. There are other ways that we can describe family, but the common goal is that we are part of the same unit. and whether that, that unit is those who are born together, born under the same parentage, it's really about how we act and build and grow cohesively as a unit. And I think that is really the basis of why we see the reflection of families in communities. So if we don't have strong family units, we don't have strong communities. And so I want to just... Are you timing me with your tapping on the table? Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to set the tone a little bit for our special guest, Miss Lakita Ferguson of On Cue Coaching and Consulting. I want her to just feel welcome and know that everything that she is doing within individuals and communities, within families, matters, makes a difference, and even what she's doing in the workplace. So I want to just let her talk a little bit about what she does, and we're going to get started in our podcast, getting the juice up.
All righty, Miss Heather. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So where do I begin? So On Cue Coaching, I love acronyms. So it actually, it stands for something. O, it stands for open communication. N is for nurturing environment, and Q is qualitative goals. And the meaning of that is the type of environment that I choose to facilitate when I work with individuals or families or communities and workplace. I want it to be a place of healing. So when we talked about families and grief and the mother who was able to work through her grief and support her child, no doubt she was able to do that because of the environment, because of how she's being nurtured, whether it's through her family, in the community, through friendships, being among people that love her, supporting her son was a nurturing environment. So that is my goal, to facilitate that when families have encountered any type of trauma. So you speak about a quote. I love this quote that defines trauma. And it's from Dr. Wendy Coughlin. She's a psychotherapist that works out of Florida. And when I heard this, it shook me to my core. And it is, trauma causes sudden change in the meaning, safety, and predictability of our world.
Say it again.
Trauma causes sudden changes in the meaning, safety, and predictability of our world. So it's a deep emotional wound. And really, all of us have endured trauma over the last 3 years dealing with the pandemic because it was a sudden change in the meaning, safety, and predictability of your world. When we talk about children, that's my passion. Children growing up in this environment, it's not just a song that children are the future. And when you grow up in an environment, which I have, that a family has been affected by trauma, it's so important to nurture those children so that their identity isn't shaped by what happened to me, but it's shaped by who I choose to be and who I choose to become and thrive in spite of. So that's what we do at On Cue Coaching. I work with individuals who are mostly coming out of divorce because that's also something that I can relate to and have come out on the other side and have remarried and know what it's like to just go through that transition. Supporting them when they're working. What's that like to not have the cognitive ability to focus because you're so bombarded with the changes that are going on in your life? To support the employers to know how to support their employees that are going through life-changing circumstances, whether it's a divorce or loss of a loved one, grief, not just something that may have happened at the workplace or at the school, but outside, because we bring who we are wherever we are. So it's trauma-informed workshops and coaching, anything. I do speaking engagements as well to support and facilitate healing. That's what it's all about for me, wholeness and healing.
Oh, awesome.
All right, welcome to the club. What's happening?
Thank you. I don't get no rumble or... Thank you.
That make you feel good?
Yes.
Get that sister some rumble.
Talk a little bit more about your journey and your career and how you kind of came into becoming this amazing woman that you are.
Oh, thank you. You know, everything in life is, I feel, comes full circle. And so I mentioned before, when I was a little girl, probably like 6 or 7 years old, my family encountered this traumatic event. And I remember going to family therapy and having a social worker, and I just felt so safe and comfortable in the presence of this man. He was like, I don't know, like heavenly to me. I just felt so safe and calm in his presence. And I just remember as I got older, just even when I would feel anxious or get these emotions that I didn't know how to deal with, I would take myself physically, mentally back to that place. And I would pretend that I was with him. You know, that was the safe place for me. As I got older, just attracted to money and what career I'm going to go, what path I'm going to take, I chose accounting because I was good in math. But it wasn't something that I was passionate about. So then I get married at 21, which was way too young for me. I had no idea who I was. And I married someone who also had a traumatic past. And the two of us together just constantly bumped heads because we had this unprocessed trauma that we were really just lashing out our inner child wounds against each other. And so the marriage didn't last. After 11 years, we got divorced. In my healing of divorce, because writing has always been my passion, I started a blog. That blog grew and it started getting attention, and I would get these questions about, well, what do you do about this and what do you do about that? I didn't always know the answer, but I'll research and find it, and it was actually helping me heal. When I met my current husband, he's the one that was like, you should be a coach. And I'm like, what? I'd been ministering since I was 16, but coaching was like, what does that mean? And I just started investigating it. I studied neuro-linguistic programming, which really takes the way that you think, the way that you speak about your experiences, and help you to develop new and better strategies that are personally for you. And so that's how the coaching started. And just because of how energy works, I would attract women mostly who were coming out of divorce. And I would say 8 times out of 10, they'd had some type of traumatic childhood experience that had affected them in their relationships. And I knew that that was the case with me. And so I know that this was something that I had a passion about. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's time for me to jump ship, leave accounting, and do what my passion and my purpose has been. I've always been able to dream and have, this won't sound weird to you, Heather, because I know we have this synergy going. But since I was 7 years old, I would get these dreams where I felt like God was speaking to me, like directly to me. And I would wake up and I'm like, I had this dream, and my, mother or father would entertain it. I'm like, oh, that's cute. And I'm like, no, seriously, God told me to do this. And I would have these recurring dreams even after I was thinking about leaving accounting and going into coaching. And the dream was always that I was returning to school, but under the capacity of like social work or coaching or something like that. And so that's where my path, I decided to listen, and like, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, look at you. And look at God.
Look at God.
For sure. So did you have family members that supported that when you started to change and shift career path? Your friendships, did they look at you like, you're leaving this to do this? Did you have those questions come up?
Surprisingly, it wasn't so much with friends. Friends were like, okay, yeah, I could see you, because I was their coach in so many ways anyway.
Right.
It was actually my family. I think in hindsight, it was this realization that she's going to start to unpack our family drama.
Okay.
And I remember, close family saying to me, like, you're too sensitive. You can't listen to people's problems all the time. You'll cry. And I'm like, I am a crybaby. However, I've learned to channel my emotions. And a lot of it, as I'm coaching and helping them, I'm healing myself too.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm also I'm able to identify things that have happened in my family that I could never put a name to. Like, I grew up with this feeling that was like in the pit of my stomach when I would drive into certain areas in Detroit, and I was like, what is that? And as I began to work more with improving my coaching abilities and listening to my clients, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's shame. It was following me throughout my life where I personally felt like because I had this lingering family thing that happened to me, I was a bad person, that people could see through me. And so it's been healing to assist others on their healing journey, but also to heal myself and then be the catalyst and the vessel for my family to have conversations that we were not having before.
So it sounds like you act on purpose.
I do.
Yeah. And following that inner guidance as well as the synchronicities, because I believe in the opportunities that we start to line up. It's almost like a snap in place. You know, every time you make that connection, like our connection, it was definitely a snap. It was definitely a snap in place. Snap. And so you know that when you get that level of confirmation, that you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And even the right season to do whatever those connections bring, and also to follow that way of your purpose. So purpose work is such a part of what we talk about and how we're motivated and how we live our lives every day.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because going back to the name of my company, it's not just an acronym, but I also feel like when you get to the root of who you are and you live in your authenticity, opportunities present themselves right on cue. It's like you mentioned, it's that synergy, it's that alignment. Everything is happening in perfect timing and divine timing, because now you're operating from a place of genuineness, and that you can be used to speak authentically. Your voice has meaning.
Absolutely.
When you are operating as who you truly are.
And that's, and I think both of our organizations, Calvin has two organizations. He has Good Fathers Only, which is what it says, and Encourage Me, I'm Young, which again is what it says. My business is your inspired journey. It is what it says. Because once we understand our piece, and I know we get to see the changes that are happening in the world, especially the ones that we want to see.
Yeah.
I think that's so very important. And so if you're listening out there and you're wondering about your purpose and your purpose work and if you should do this or do that, if you're following your intuition and your inner guidance, that's one piece. And when you start seeing the alignments and the synchronicities, that's your confirmation. We need you to step up and be where you're supposed to be. We need for you to step in alignment, because all of the things that we're seeing happening in our world, it is because some of us are out of place.
Right.
And so once we put ourselves in place, we are doing that healing work. I call it self-work. We're doing that self-work to develop and grow and start to be able to use the tools that we use for ourselves to be able to share those with others. That aligns us, and we can see the change that we want to see and be in the world.
Yeah.
So follow your purpose, work. We need you to step in place.
So with that, right, we went to the conference, right?
What conference?
The TD Jakes Leadership Conference.
Okay.
Right. And in detailing, when we talk about purpose, because I think we have to be clear, purpose and poverty, right, and poverty mindset, right, is a real thing. How do you, and this is to both of you, and you can figure it out, between the two of you, but how do you decide how much is purpose emotional and how much is purpose should be business?
For me, it has to be personal first. And that's just because I'm not, I started my career path when I was doing accounting, chasing money, but that didn't get me out of bed excited every morning. It didn't inspire me to do anything. And so I live on purpose, but also intuition and inspiration. Like, I want to leave an impact on the world. So it is personal, it's business, especially when I was starting out as an entrepreneur. It took me about a year to get my mindset right, meaning that I was operating from a poverty, or what I call a scarcity mindset. That employee that is living paycheck to paycheck, I can't invest in that because I don't know when the next dollar is going to come. And what I've learned just in my entrepreneurship in business owning is that energy attracts energy, and money is energy. So if I'm afraid to invest in myself and in my business, then I can't expect anyone to want to invest and work with me. So it has to be a blending of the personal and the business, but my motivation behind it has to be personal first, with the business as like the personal is the foundation and the business are the pillars that keeps the building up.
That's a great way to say that. I was thinking when you were saying that, I was thinking that the personal is the foundation and the business is the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so when you're, you hear the saying that your gifts will make a way for you, I think it's really following that leading. But even when we look at it, there's work to be done. There's work to be done on our inner selves, on our mindset, and I like the scarcity term, as opposed to poverty mindset. But that's one that we recognize because it's most prevalent in that the terminology is in our everyday language now, especially. So part of that process is then affirming those things that you want as opposed to seeing only where you are. If you get stuck with only seeing where you are, you miss the opportunity for the potential that you have.
Absolutely.
And so I think as I hear your question, Calvin, and I think about how I had to shift my mindset. I never, even growing up, I never saw us in poverty. Like I never saw us as poor, and I never saw us in poverty. And so if somebody looked in, it's like, okay, well, you didn't have this, you didn't have that. I never felt like I had a lack of anything because we always made the best of what we had and was grateful for what we did have. And so it never seemed like poverty to me. It had to kind of, be pointed out that, you guys weren't in that type of financial situation or status. But, both my parents worked. They were firm believers in education and going to work and being a part of that process. So I think that it's not always what we think it is when we use those terms. I think, again, that these are things in our meridian path, our backstory, that we have to go back and define and refine as adults, because a lot of what we have taken in was from the lens of a child. So that's a child's mind, a child's definition, and you take that into your adulthood when you don't go back and you refine and define what things mean for you now versus what it meant to you then. I think that's a huge part of a healing process. So I hope I answered your question, Calvin.
Well, I don't know, really, right? You might want to give them some noise so she'll keep our sister on point with the noise.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, I have not heard so much applause on this show. Bring Lakita back a few more times.
Right. No. I don't think there's one concrete answer when you're in purpose. I do think, sitting in the pew as for me at the leadership conference as a minority, I would say minority with a majority mindset, right? With knowing that there's a plan. That was what stood out was one of the things he said was he's at his point in his life where, this is the best, and he's trying to stay here for it all. He said, this is the best time in my life.
And who was the he you're speaking of?
T.D. Jakes said, this was the best time in my life right now, and these last 4 years have been the most incredible years of my life.
Wow.
Right? So to move on, talk about your organization and the services that they provided, and what are some ways that you help address issues of wellness, because wellness is a big thing. I think anybody around me is getting some of that wellness. So let's see what we got to hear right now.
Okay. So.
You like that one? Huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, my goodness. So wellness has such a personal meaning for me because at, how old was I? 29, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia. And it completely changed my world. I went blind in my left eye. I taught myself how to write with my toes just in case my hands stopped working, because I would get very numb in my hands. And it was just a year of learning a new way of living. And I took the holistic route after just going through my own healing journey and working with physical therapists and meditation and all of that. I took that path because I noticed the power of my thoughts. And when I thought a certain way, I felt a certain way. And so I started intentionally giving myself positive messages. I would write in my journal. On one side, I would write all the negative things, all the things that I was afraid of and doubtful of. And on the right side, I would write everything contrary to that, in the opposite, positively affirming what I wanted. And I started to feel physically better. I paid attention to what I was eating. I paid attention to not just eating because it tastes good, but I wanted to eat what was very healthy for my body. I didn't like beets, but beets made me feel good, so I'm going to eat them. I started exercising. I moved to Arizona, so I started hiking, doing things that, they say Black folks don't do. Hiking and jet skiing and all just fun things. And I started noticing how my body was impacted by that. So wellness for me is about the whole person. And I take that with me when I work with individuals, when I work with corporations. I've been in school districts. I take a holistic path. A lot of my clients have said that they feel like it's a power wash when they sit with me. Like I strip them all the way down and then I shine them up and say, all right, now go out and be great. Because that's how I feel the wholeness and harmony happens, is when we get to the root of who we are. So wellness for me is not just about one area. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that's my principle of living, that our physiological, our safety and all of that, those are the primary needs that need to be met before we can get to the emotional and the physical, the mental, the relationships, the self-actualization. Let's fill those basic needs so that we can shine and thrive in life. And so I take that, as I mentioned, I work with women mostly, but actually men tend to prefer to work with me over women sometimes. So that works out. But I work with individuals who are surviving, whether they're in divorce, thinking about divorce, or coming out of divorce, and they want to learn how to thrive. So it's a 3-brain approach. I use the physical, emotional, and logical, the whole being. The brain approach comes from the fact that I was diagnosed with this dis-ease that affected my brain. And I say dis-ease because that's exactly what was happening within my body. And so I take that approach and say, okay, now your brain is the motherboard, so to speak, of the computer, of your life, of your body. So we need to make sure that that's operating at its best capacity. All 3 brains. Your gut is a brain. If you listen to it, it will tell you, don't eat that. We don't like that. It will tell you, we don't like those people. We don't like the energy that they bring into your environment. And so really tuning in to every part of our body is wellness. We take who we are, wherever we are, into our work environment, into our relationships, into our hobbies, into our interests in the community. And when we're misaligned, that's when we get that dis-ease. And so it's a trauma-informed approach that I take to corporations, especially because a lot of times they give you they just want you to focus on the task, get these benchmarks done, meet these deadlines, and it takes the person out of who's doing that work. Well, they're bringing trauma with them. They're bringing grief with them. Their life doesn't stop just because they're, in this environment from 8 to 5. And so if you facilitate an environment that supports their emotional wellness, their mental wellness, get them to get up and move around their body throughout the day. Have a 2-minute break where everybody just gets up and do a dance and be silly or do something, so that it can be someplace that they actually want to be, and that it's an extension of their life, and that brings about the harmony, the work-life harmony, instead of just the 9 to 5. That's just like, I don't really want to be here.
All right.
Thank Thank you.
Lakita, I want you to, and I've heard you say this before, but can you share again what the insight is from multiple sclerosis?
Yes. So in German, multiple sclerosis actually means multiple scars. And so what happened with me, my grandmother died, and as the case in most families, my grandmother was like the nucleus of our family. She was the one that was like, I get tingling. Just when I talk about her, I start to get emotional all over again. But she was the one who was the eyes and ears in our family. She lived in California most of the time while we lived in Michigan, but when she would come into town, she could read me. I didn't have to say a word. So she was the person that I knew I was always safe with. And when she died, it was like, oh my goodness. Like I had all these unanswered questions that I, couldn't get answered, stories that I wanted to relate to her. I wanted to tell her what had really happened to me as a child that I was always afraid to say, but she already knew. Anyway, she just always made it very clear that she loved me for who I was and didn't look down on me or think I was unworthy because of what had happened to me. So when this multiple sclerosis diagnosis came to me, the multiple scars was a combination of my grandmother dying and this abusive marriage that I was in. Just that was filled with infidelity, emotional abuse. It was very toxic. And then it became verbal and physical. And I literally lost my voice. I could not speak for almost a week. And I was going to all these doctors, and they're like, we don't know what's wrong with you. All of your blood work and everything is normal. It might be something autoimmune. I go to have the neurologist do an MRI, and they're like, yeah, you have like 5 scars on your brain. And what that basically means is there's an installation of the central nervous system. I compare it to like the cord of a charger that has that installation where if you cut it, you can see all the wires. Where there were 5 areas on my brain that had exposed wires, exposed nerves. And so the messages were getting disrupted. If I was telling my left leg to lift, it wouldn't. I was falling down the stairs. I was losing my words. I couldn't focus. I was in accounting, and I really needed to be able to focus, but I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't do that. Right. Just the physical aspect of it, and then it was just the emotional aspect of it because I'm like, now I have this illness that could debilitate me. The type that I have, there's four, well, really 3 that I recognize. Relapsing, remitting, which is the one that I have, it comes and goes. And then there's progressive, which is the symptoms are constantly growing and you're constantly getting new lesions on your brain, which are those scars. And then there's the, I forgot what the other one, but it's progressive palliative, I think it is. But where basically it's like you're declining. And so I was told that within 10 years, I may not be able to walk. And that was 2010. This is 2020.
Come on with
Blessings.
that.
Blessings.
Come on with that.
I'm not only walking, but my husband and I are professional ballroom dance instructors. So as long as his body is moving, I'm going to move. But yeah, multiple sclerosis affects more women than men. The rate that it's growing in the African American community is constantly growing. It used to be thought that it was only men or it was only white community or white counterparts. But now African American women of color are constantly being diagnosed with this multiple sclerosis. And you trying to say something?
Go ahead. I'll let you
You're
finish.
testifying. It's like you having a...
Yeah, go ahead, do your thing.
Shake it. I'm like, you about to catch it. Okay. And there's been studies that have been done that links childhood trauma to autoimmune illnesses.
There we go.
That's what he's
Yes.
There we go.
Yep.
So now this intrigues me, right? So my children's book, Adventures of Oba and Luther. My friend Oba, he had MS. He declined tremendously to the point that he died. I showed up at Oba's funeral with the book cover with Oba and Luther, right? Keeping my word, because I like to keep my word, you know. But my question, and to what you were just saying, that's why I kept pointing, because if you had those 5 things on your brain, what were the 5 things that caused those things, right? You listed a lot of them, which would make for a ton of our children.
Yes.
From ACEs.
Yes.
To, and so this impacts me on the level, I'm constantly asking doctors, research people, something is happening to our children in the womb.
Oh.
Now we know, you know, when you have physical abuse, mental abuse, right, those things, we know, right? But I'm saying something is happening to our children in the womb. I don't know how or when or this research happened, but I'm constantly looking into the cognitive behavior of people and men and reading and studying it, right? So Dr. Jaak Panksepp and different people like that, right? But what you just said ran completely across from one to the other. So in other words, these things caused your things.
Yes.
And you discovered another way to heal those 5 things and move them so your whole being could be whole.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a doctor. I just play one sometimes. You know what I mean?
Play it well.
So, thank you, first of all, because a lot of people, this will be the clip, right, from this that I want to edit and share, right? Because a lot of people don't understand what they are doing to each other. And it's funny because and you can fire off, interrupt me at any point, but it's funny because we just think that this is normal.
No.
We have found, right, these things, acceptable culture, as she says, these things to become normal. And I just cannot participate. It's me working to non-participate in this demographic of foolishness.
Yeah. Well, if you thought that was mind-blowing, then what I'm about to say next might make you get up out your seat.
Okay, well, let's go. I'm ready to jump.
So you spoke about, we think that this is normal. There's a book called The Myth of Normal. It's by, his name is Gabor. I always forget how to pronounce his last name. But
Don't worry about it. I get it.
Yeah, the Myth of Normal. And in it, he discusses what you just spoke about, and that everything, not just from our womb, but even the environment, the way we live our everyday life, the constant grind, the hustle mentality, all of that is trauma effects. It's an effect of trauma. Entrepreneurs, the majority of them, myself included, have chosen to right a wrong. We turn our pain into purpose, but it triggered or it stemmed from a trauma. I am very adamant on protecting children because of my trauma. So the work that I do even includes something called timeline therapy, when you talked about the womb. In that timeline therapy, it's a holistic form of therapy. It's not like psychotherapy, but it helps you get to the root cause of whatever emotion that you're feeling. Well, in my training for this, I also had to participate as a client to see how it would affect me. When we go through all of the 6 major emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, resentment. When we got to fear, I was amazed and a little bit mystified by what came up for me. It's a form of hypnotherapy that's not as invasive. And what came up for me is that at the 5-month stage of my gestation, I felt fear. I didn't know where it came from. I'm like, I'm going to have to go ask my mother. I don't know where this came from. Why would I have felt fear at 5 months gestation? So I have a conversation with my mom, and she says, well, that was around the time that we found out about everything that was happening in our family, and I was terrified of bringing a daughter into the world. And I was threatened to lose you twice. And I
Epigenetics.
got put on bed rest. Epigenetics.
Woo!
It's real.
Absolutely.
Woo! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I needed to hear that today.
I told you it was going to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just to transition to where people can connect with you, I want you to say this a couple of times, how they can connect with you.
Yeah.
I want you to start, though, with some of the upcoming events that you have going on. Can you talk a little bit about those?
So we have our Entrepreneurial Soft Life workshop starting this Friday, July 1st. I'm really excited about that because, as I mentioned, as an entrepreneur, small business owners, we have to make sure that our families are intact, which starts with us personally. So it is a wellness/business workshop. You're going to learn how to care for yourself while you are leaving a legacy for your family. So that starts July 1st. It'll be 3 weekends in a row. I'm down at Hunt Street Station. Really excited, and we have some fun things planned for that. Then we also have, Heather and I have coming up next month, the Peacefully Thriving workshop, which is for women who are coming out of divorce, helping them to start their next chapter, get clarity on what they want that to look like, have the courage to do it, and the confidence to move forward.
When is that?
That begins July 28th.
Yep, the last Friday of
Yeah.
July.
Write that down for me. July 28th.
July 28th.
It's is that a Friday or
That's
Saturday?
a Friday.
Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And where is that at?
That one will be at Avalon
That
Healing
Healing
Center.
So that's the one you guys are having at Avalon.
Yes,
It's July 28th.
July 28th.
And time. What's the time?
It's at 6.
Yeah, from 6 to 8:30.
Okay, where's the flyer?
We'll have to have the flyers.
Okay, I need the
can
flyer,
get the flyers.
right? Let's really put some oomph behind because it's really needed.
Yeah.
It's really needed. I'm watching sisters unravel
Yes.
in catastrophic ways, right? And because she's not really big, the social media, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I see them unravel daily, and it's real spooky when they unravel because they don't understand. A lot of women don't understand the order that you have literally been out of order for centuries. Mm-hmm. So you don't understand how having order helps your wellness, peace, vision, desires, the whole nine. When it's out of order and you're listening, you begin. So I'm watching them unravel, right? It's the same thing I see with men, but as I said today, when they were talking about the Chicago thing. So you didn't see the Chicago thing with the father. The guy was talking, he was erupting, he started punching on the mom in Chicago, right? And the son,
14-year-old,
and the 14-year-old went in the car, got the gun, and shot and killed him.
Yeah.
Well, they released him today. They found now guilty, right? But in the process, the man was telling you he was already unraveled. He was completely out of order. We have far too many men with masculine bodies and feminine minds.
Yes. And we also have the opposite.
And we have the opposite.
Yeah.
We have too many women with feminine bodies but a masculine mind.
Yeah.
And Heather did some and talked about some, she's always researching. She did some research on the food that women eat that makes them masculine. It's an amazing thing, right? But yes, let's jump. As soon as we can.
We got one more event.
Right.
Yeah, do your thing.
Me,
I'm just talking about the event.
Yeah, we're
But
going to
go
get the
ahead.
flyer for Avalon, too. But the next one, the big one that I'm looking forward to is the Leadership Experience Tour, hosted by Sean Fair. That is coming up September 23rd at the Michigan Education Center out in Troy. I am thrilled to be taking the stage, and that's why I will be sharing a little bit about my story as a trauma and divorce recovery coach, and there will be opportunities to work with me from that as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yes.
That is awesome. We know a few people went through Sean.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, Lakita, give us how we reach you. Let's put that out there a couple of times.
If you're on social media, the easiest way is I'm on all social media platforms at Coach Q Simone. That's CoachQSimone. TikTok has become my favorite, but I was fighting it for so long, but now I'm on there. And my website is LakitaSimone.com. I'll spell that. It's LaQuitaSimone.com.
Is there an email, phone number?
On either of those, there's a link that you can contact me. You can click on the link to call me even, but my telephone number is 586-684-5994.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yay.
Ah. Heather, where can they find you at, babe?
You can find me at yourinspiredwithad.journey.com. Yourinspiredjourney.com is the website. You can reach out to me at 313-759-7855, which is by phone. And if all else fails, you can Google. Hopefully you'll find one of my books that will be the right resource at the right time. Mm-hmm. And you can also, we have articles in Detroit Native Sun News. Pick up one of those free publications, support the businesses that are there, support some of the dialogue that is open when you reply to some of the articles that you read there. So lots of good information, good insight, and things that are going on in our community that sometimes you may not know. So connect with us on those platforms.
Besides that, what do you have coming up?
What I have coming up is this work around this grief that women are having. And I was having this conversation earlier today about having this platform for women who have been, it's a different form of trauma. Women who have lost children, whether that was through stillbirth, abortion, miscarriage. There is a level of healing that has to take place within our women. The number of women who face just abortion a year in the state of Michigan, there are only over 26,000 women that are documented that experience at least the abortion for whatever the reasons. We're not talking about the reasons why it happens. We're talking about the fact that it does happen. And that loss is still a loss. And men also have the trauma that comes with it. They may not be able to express it because they may not often know that that is the case, but it's there. And if we don't start this healing process in this way, in this form, we just continue to carry that, and we continue to carry it and bury it, but it's never really buried. So we want people to be able to have the opportunity to start this process. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you fall into any of those categories, please reach out to me. I'm feeling some kind of way about having that publicly said, but I was given some advice today to just say it.
Yes.
Because the only way to help you get through it is to name it. And so you may see some things that are talking about that particular subject area so that we can heal as women, so that we can be and become who we are meant to be and not be weighed by some of the guilt and the grief that comes along with the losses that we've experienced either today or in the past. So I just want to put that out there because I think that's a really, really important opportunity for healing to take place. And so between now and the end of the year, you will see this come up more and more, and to have these small group healing sessions. So I hope you're able to connect to me, and so that we can start doing this work of release. And it's a lot to do, but if you're ready and you're ready to have this next level experience and be released from some of the burdens, then let's talk.
I don't see small. And I don't see small groups with y'all, with that process. So I'm going to just put that out there real quick. That's not what I saw.
Right. I mean, and some retreats. No. And there are 2 retreats.
I see retreats, and I do see small, just because that's such an intimate, personal I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because
But I
the only
think-
reason why I say that, baby, and excuse me, both of you, the only reason why I say that is because every day intimacy is exposed
True.
on social media. Every day we put intimacy out into the atmosphere, reducing it versus it being. This is the difference between standing and impacting thousands. It's the difference from who's the presenter, who's the conversationalist, who's the person, then presenting, and who's in the room for the. Every Sunday they go to church. They're full of women and people. Every Sunday on YouTube there's a new release by a different pastor, and in the audience are women and men in their intimate forms. And so just saying that is what I'm saying when I say it. Reducing it is one thing. Those are, but seeing it, for me, that was my only point.
I love that.
Right. So, dope. Loved it. One thing, as we're wrapping up here, my children's book, Adventures of Oprah Luther 2, is coming out in August. We will be doing a book signing, a collaborative book signing. So you're more than welcome to join us. I want to do a book signing where there's more than one author. And I'm going to select a date here. October 7th is our man-to-man youth conference. We're looking for sponsors and different people want to get involved. We're putting men in front of boys, from Taveri Brent down to Jermaine Weinrich, lawyers, people, having these conversations with the boys. Food, conversation, but more or less results, direction. And when you leave, you will feel that much better. In the boy is a seed. That seed is cultivated, right? When I was speaking about what is happening in the womb, in the world today, there are more boys born than girls in the world, except for to the African American culture. Only in America are we producing more girls than boys. Worldwide, this is a trend. Locally, it's not. We're out of order. Why is that? Only God knows. But one of the things that I recognize is there's a considerable amount of things that is happening. As Q said it, trauma.
Yes.
As Heather deals with it, trauma. She uses, words always, meridian path, all these words that I ain't that interested in, but that's what she do. That's what she's interested in. You know what I mean? That's what you guys do, right? So me jumping in, that's like I'm jumping into your lane that you can't, because my lane is already heavy. And if I jump, it's going to snatch me right back. My point is, culturally, family is supposed to be the safest place. Culturally, family is supposed to be where we cultivate. Many times over the last 20 years, I've heard what whoopings and spankings, and I've constantly said that was the beginning. That was learned trauma. If I hit you with an extension cord, the feeling of that is bringing trauma. But that's also from the symptom of racism, because I have to protect you from me and I have to create these boundaries. But what it did was it caused a lot of problems in family. So then when we break away into after the civil rights movement, we're like, hey, we're civil rights. Everybody want to know what's going on. The government had already had you set up for the environment for which we reside in right now. A 70% single household rate. Men and women contribute. What is the other thing? Men have an impact because we tell our boys to sow the wild oats. So our boys are sowing wild oats. We go back to the trauma. She said she had 5 scars on her brain from trauma.
What I forgot to mention is I'm down to 1 now.
I already knew, sister. I already knew.
Blessings.
I already knew, because the brain is the most powerful muscle in your body.
Yeah.
It determines, dictates, and drives everything. So in that process, we see, as I'm closing this because I got to get this out of my head, we see these things, right? But we ignore them. We fall into the process, but then we say we don't want nothing to do with the system, but we fall into the process of the system, learned behavior, all of that. So if I'm telling a boy when I was young, I was 20 when I stepped out here, one of the things that I said, I was 20 when I got kicked out of college, and I said, I'm not going to teach a boy what they taught me. And I didn't. And that is what God has done to me. Because I saw people snatch, move dreams. They were snatching dreams. You see this little boy, and they want to know, like we at the football camp and everything. I'm coming down. I'm getting there. The football camp. At the football camp, you see these kids, and it's across the board, right, with these boys. And it's the same thing with these girls and the families. We are out of order, and we causing these things. That thing happened to her. Just the whole process. Congratulations to you both, but understand it is so much work that we have to get louder to help people see that they can be helped and can move on in their life and still get their dreams. This world prints enough money. This world has enough people, and we have enough to fulfill God's wishes in your dreams and in your life. Understand, but family is the first place you're going to learn unity, and you better improve that before you push these kids out into this world. Thank you for this beautiful conversation. Love it. Again, my book will be out in a minute. Oh, and I got the coloring book to go with it and the early childhood book to go with it. And so I'm just excited about everything that's coming down the pipeline. The 28th is on the map. I'm off July 1st. I'll holler back at y'all, but the 28th is on the map. We're going to be pushing the 28th for us as much as possible. And I really just got to tell you, no matter what you do, no matter where you at, because I take mine. I was in the bank today, and my little brother was behind me at the counter. I heard his voice. I turned around, and we started laughing. And the guy said, who is that? I say, that's my brother. He said, man, you knew that was your brother. I know my call. I know the tone. I know my people. This is what it is. So put your family first. Thank you. Peace.